I'm finishing it up. You should receive it in Canvas and a little bit later today. In Canvas, under assignments. If you go under assignments, I'm sorry, you go into grades. So under Canvas, you go into grades. You can select literature review, and on the right hand side you should have my comments here and a link to a Word document that you can download on your computer, open up, and see my comments. I made all my comments in Microsoft Word. Alright, so you'll see all the information here in this section under grades. Okay. So the way that I'm grading each individual product is, the idea here is that based on the feedback that I give, you're going to have until May 23rd to make the changes. Okay. On May 23rd, that's when I'm going to receive the complete thesis. Even though it's called the first draft, it's basically my last draft because it's my last opportunity to give feedback. But if you make the changes based on my feedback, theoretically you should have a better product at the end for the first draft. And whatever grade you get for that first draft, I will then go back and adjust each individual grade accordingly. Okay, so don't be too concerned now about your grade, because we have time to make changes and improve the product for the first draft for May 23rd. When you turn in your product on May 23rd, you're going to give me your final product. I'll make comments. That same draft will be forwarded to your to the other tutors for when you give your mock presentation. So they're going to likely give you feedback as well. So you're going to receive feedback from me as well as from the other tutors. And then you'll have a few days. You won't have a lot of time. You'll have a few days to make the very last changes for your final draft that you will then forward to the examiners. Okay. The idea is, what I'd like is I want to get your first draft as close as possible, so any changes will be minimal. There won't be major changes at that point. Okay. So the idea is, that's how I'm planning on working, is each product you'll receive feedback and you'll have time to make those changes for May 23rd.
I haven't seen any grade for my lead review.
Right, and I'm saying that a little bit later today I'll send that and update that information.
Okay.
I haven't sent it yet, so that's why you haven't received
With
it.
me?
Yeah, for you. So, but I'm almost finished. I should have it done today. I will have it done today and send it to you today. Okay?
Okay.
Now, if you don't understand something of the feedback that I'm giving, if you want to schedule additional time, either face-to-face or online or whatever, that's fine. If you need further explanation as far as the feedback that I'm giving, if you're not sure about some of the things that I'm giving, providing in the document, I'm trying to also include links to their videos or their web pages that I think might help explain things. But if you need additional time beyond our tutoring session, that's fine. Just let me know and we can schedule that time. But it's very important that you understand some of the feedback. And all of my abbreviations are coming from this document here, and this is the coding system that I'm using. So if I say comma splice, if I just put CS for comma splice, sometimes I include the link but to videos, but you can go find what it is, how to fix a comma splice, or ask me if you want me to explain about comma splices. I can do that. But the key is just to make sure that you understand the feedback, and if not, ask. Okay, and I'll try to provide further explanation. Okay. Now this week 6, we're starting our instrument design, so we need to look again at our research questions to think about how we want to design our instruments to best answer our research questions. So let's take a look at your research questions. All right, so how do language teachers intervene in small groups? Language teachers, when conducting task-based learning, since it's part of teachers and jobs, conduct task-based learning can be used to integrate students. The first question is, how do students choose to work together in small groups when participating in task-based learning? So, how do students choose to participate in class and task-based learning, and how do language teachers intervene with small groups? All right. So I think we talked about one teacher, no? Or how many teachers are we thinking about?
At least one at least.
Okay. Do you have an idea about what school you're thinking about observing?
Yes and no. As I told you, I would like to have this with other teacher, the other English teacher.
Where you work, right?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I hadn't seen her more, but I'm still thinking about her.
Okay.
Yes.
So you're thinking just of one teacher at this point?
So far.
Okay. All right, and you want to explain? You're writing some notes there. Do you have something you
The
want to
kind of
explain?
instrument I'm trying to use.
Okay.
I'm going to design kind of worksheets observable, so that I have, for example, the 3 groups, or more could be, because those are going to be with small groups, at least 3 or 4 students, so that I can identify the ones who do not work at all. Teacher can tell me, or they can be identified by themselves if they work or not. And so by observing, they can receive check marks if they are participating or not. The same with the other group, with the students of this group, with other groups. This is going to be only the first day. And so trying to integrate them into task-based the day 2, we may have results so that the same student in the same group worked more.
Okay. So we're focusing only on students in the START program, correct?
Yes.
And we're only focusing on secondary level, or what level?
Primary school.
Primary.
Mhm.
Okay. So we're focusing on primary school students.
Mhm.
All right. And let's assume for right now we're focusing on one teacher. Okay. And part of the START program is to use a task-based approach. So everybody has to use a task-based approach. Right. And that's stated in the program, correct?
Mhm. Yes.
Okay. So for our research, we need to triangulate our data sources, triangulate the information that we use to answer our research questions, right? So we can't rely on just one type of data. So let's make a list of the data sources. The one data source that comes to mind would be the actual syllabus, the written syllabus, the written document. And I'm assuming you can get a copy of that. So one data source is the written syllabus, assuming that they state someplace in there something about task-based.
Yes,
something
there's a
about
part which states this.
Okay. So that's one data source. Another data source. All right. Before we talk about the second data source, now we focus on one teacher. We're talking about doing a case study. The reason for doing a case study is to choose, in this case, a teacher or a group that is unique in some way, that's different. The reason for doing a case study is because this particular case is unique. It's different. It's not like all the others. One of the things that the señoritas might ask you is, why did you choose this teacher? What's the rationale, the reasoning behind choosing this teacher? And you have to have a good reason for that. So you need to have evidence some students, for example, are sending out questionnaires, and based on the questionnaires they're choosing, and that's their evidence. But you need to have some sort of evidence or reasoning or rationale for you to choose this particular person.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know how you want to look at that, how you want to I mean, you know this person, right? I'm assuming you know this person. I know this person is at your school, but that can't be the reason, right? So it can't be because she's your friend or because she works at the same school. Just it needs to be like maybe she's different in some way from the other teachers in that school. And so I don't know how many teachers you have at that school, but if you can do some sort of questionnaire that applies to that school only, and she shows some sort of uniqueness in her teaching or her group, then that information needs to be included in your research and in your rationale for choosing that person. Okay? All right, so if you use a questionnaire, like I'm suggesting, that would be another data source questionnaire. But only the questionnaire for that one teacher, not all the questionnaires. Okay, so a questionnaire could be another data source. Now, you're suggesting here some sort of observation sheet. All right, so I'm going to put here observation, and I'm just going to say field notes, some sort of field notes, or maybe a guide or something. But and you're going to probably, are you going to record each the small groups? So you're also going to have recordings. These are 2 data sources. Right now you have 4 data sources, or 3 different types. You have syllabus, questionnaire, and observation. Are you thinking about doing an interview?
Yes.
For the teachers?
Okay.
So an interview. So we'll have an interview guide. Hasta ahí. Creo que hasta ahí. The syllabus is going to be minimal, but I think important. The questionnaire will be short too. These will be the bulk. The observation and the interview guide will be the main thing, but all of this information can be included in your analysis. Okay? Now, the field notes. You're observing how do students choose to work together? Okay? So let's just take that one question first. How do students choose to work together in small groups? All right. Do you think the system that you have here is going to tell you how they choose to interact in small groups?
Well, that was my doubt, because I was thinking about if teacher only says, okay, getting trios, getting in teams of 4, so they will do it. On the other hand, if the teacher says, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, number 1 get together, number 2 as well, and so it would be, what, I don't know, what, so you suggest the teacher to do in this way, or select some leaders and they choose their teams.
Okay. All right, there's different ways to do this. Okay, so I am trying to think of, you have the questionnaire, and I know you know this, your teacher that you're thinking about, you probably know how she teaches, perhaps. If you did a questionnaire, okay, I'm assuming you do a questionnaire and you apply it. How many teachers are in your school?
Only 2, she and I.
There's no other teacher? Well, how can we do that? Okay.
Most of the schools
Could-
only have 2 teachers, 3, yes.
Can and I'm assuming you're choosing this teacher because convenience. I'm assuming, right? Or why are you choosing this teacher?
Because even though there is a complicated environment where children do not participate, she integrates them into teams and they participate. I like the way she.
Okay, so they're okay. Mm. Do you think you can apply a questionnaire to other teachers and just see how her response compares to other responses?
Only questionnaires or also observe them and record?
Well, this is just to and I'm saying here because a questionnaire to apply to several teachers, a short, very short questionnaire, but one that asks questions about, first of all, teachers who teach in the START program that feel strongly about task-based learning and interactive dynamic classes, questions related to that. Apply it to different teachers, let's say from 3 different schools, from this school
Okay.
and 3 other schools.
Okay.
And you have, so you're, and they're all from the START program, and they're all maybe the same level, perhaps, or is that a problem? If well,
yes, because I think it's young kids are willing to participate with whoever in the class, and the 6th graders do not like to participate with all, only with the ones they.
Right, but your friend here, your teacher friend here,
She's from she has the other
teaches
4th and the other 5th grade.
Okay, but what level are you planning on participating in? Primary school?
4th and 5th grade.
Okay. Okay. So my question is, though, can you find teachers that are teaching in primary school in other schools?
Gallo, for example, is also teaching 4th, 5th, and 6th grade.
Okay. So the point is, I think try to find like 2 or 3 other teachers, or 4 teachers from other schools that are teaching primary school in the START program, and you apply the same questionnaire, but all from primary school.
Okay.
And just see how they respond, and ask general questions about task-based learning, the program, START program, how they implement or integrate skills or activities, just kind of general questions, and then based on that, you would then choose one of those teachers. If it turns out that this teacher at your school is, the best candidate, fine. But the question is, the reason for doing this is that you have reasons for choosing this teacher,
okay.
And the reasons are coming from the questionnaire.
Sure.
So, we can start with that, and that's something you can bring in next week. We can look at and be ready for next week, and you can start applying it next week. Okay? Or even before, if you have it before. If you want to come by my office before.
Yes, I can sign that type of questionnaire. Like 10 questions.
Well, it's not so much quantity as it is quality. It depends on what you ask. So it can even be less questions. Okay. It can be just open questions. It can be 2 or 3 questions if they're the right questions. It needs to give you the information you need to say, this is the best person that I want to choose to answer my research questions.
Okay.
That's the purpose.
Okay.
Okay.
I get it.
All right. So questionnaire. So we have the questionnaire, and we have now going back to this first question. In your questionnaire, you're going to be wanting to ask questions like this. Do you assign roles when your students work in small groups? Or how do the students choose their own roles when they work in small groups for task-based learning in the START program.
I got lost.
Okay.
Should I ask them that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. And this is just a general question, right? You're not asking specifically, and you don't have any proof of this, but this is just for you to say, okay,
This is the best.
this teacher and says, oh, I always, let my students choose the roles, while the other teachers say, no, I always choose the roles.
Can I add answers? For example, if you choose A, it says always. B sometimes, C never.
I would leave it open, because
Open?
then you can ask them, how do you do it? Because one is just, in fact, you're asking them, how do students choose the roles? Like if they have, different roles, or maybe one question is very general. Do students assume roles when they work in small groups? And then if yes, okay, how do they choose roles? Do you intervene? And maybe you kind of put in question examples to prompt them to kind of say, can you mention how you do it, or do they do it, or is it some combination? See? So that's the idea. And then based on that, then you're going to be doing research with everything else to verify that information, and you'll compare it to those questionnaires that you.
Maybe for Monday I can bring my questionnaire with the questions, so that you check the questions, and so if they are ready to start,
then you can apply.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. We have 4 weeks, actually 3 weeks, because we're just about finished with this week. But I'm going to go at your pace. Once you have something, you want to show it to me. If you have something on Monday, you want to come by and show it to me on Monday, I'll look at it on Monday.
Should I bring it printed? So
it can be printed, however you want. It's up to you. But I would prefer that you come by. That way we can work faster. I can ask you more questions if I have questions, make comments. You can ask questions if you're not sure about what I say. Because if we do it all online, it takes longer. Yeah, it takes longer. So just bring it in. We make comments, and that same day it should be ready, and then you can apply.
Sure.
Okay. So that's the questionnaire. Yes. That's for choosing the teacher.
Yes. Select the best teacher.
Right. So once you have that, then you need to be looking at. Let's go back to observations, field notes. Going back to your other side, your other page. How do students choose to work together? So you're going to be recording, and it can be. I think just audio.
Okay.
Yeah. You're gonna, if you have 3 groups, because this is another decision you're gonna have to make. How many groups?
5 or 7 or 3 or 4, because there are like 25 students.
Because you're not gonna be able to focus on all the groups, right?
No.
So you might have an interview first. Okay. You might have an interview after you choose. So after the questionnaire, before the observation, you have an interview, and you ask the teacher, how many groups, right? How many groups do you how big are the groups? How do they decide? Do you decide in the groups? How do they work together? See different information. And ask the teacher too if there's going to be a group or a task-based activity coming up, and plan the 3-4 weeks that you have as much as you can. Ask the teacher, when is the next time you're going to be working in class-based learning?
However, it's supposed to be every day. To every day.
Okay.
However,
every day they should work in. Okay. So leave it up to you. Then maybe you just start. If that's true, then maybe just ask them how many groups does she divide up in, because you want to. I would choose the groups based on the teacher's recommendation, or based on the teacher information, not the recommendation.
So that we can have only 3 groups to focus.
Well, I would say anywhere from 2 to 3.
Okay.
But I wouldn't ask the teacher to recommend the groups, but I would ask them, tell me about these groups. How are they? Are there some groups that work better than others? Are they always the same? Are they always different? And try to get as much information as you can, so that you can make a better decision as to which of the 2 or 3 groups are best, are suited for your research.
All this information, should I write it down or record it, so
yes.
that you can?
All interviews, all observations should be recorded.
In English? Sure, for sure.
Well, I'll leave it up to you.
She's supposed to be the English teacher.
I'll leave it up to you. I mean, if it's all in Spanish, you're gonna have to translate it, so it's more work for you. So
okay, in English.
In English, I would try to do it in English. But if she says something in Spanish, just keep responding in English, and that's fine. You can use it. But everything has to be translated to English at the end of the day. So just remember, keep that in mind. But you basically are trying to interview and talk with the teachers so that you can make a better informed decision about which groups that you want to choose for the purposes of your research questions.
Okay.
So once you have that, you're going to have the recording. So let's say you have 2 groups, for example. You have a recording. You're going to have separate recording devices. If you have 3 groups, you're going to need 3 recording devices at each table, for example. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm saying maybe just 2 groups. There's 2 groups. If you can find another cell phone somewhere, some recording device. But you're going to try to record both groups and record what they say, because you're going to have to transcribe what they say in that group, in that activity.
During the whole activity?
Well, in the activity where they are deciding on groups, on group roles.
Okay.
So you're going to have to listen to the whole tape and then analyze whatever discussions are being made that relate to roles. So you're probably going to have to translate.
That was one of my questions. It doesn't matter if they are talking in Spanish, right? What I'm looking for is that they get integrated into the groups.
Right. And you're probably going to transcribe most of the dialogue.
Sure.
Now, maybe the activity, I don't know how the activities are. Maybe the activity lasts 10 minutes. Maybe it lasts the whole class. I don't know. But you are looking at those cases. Now, if you have like a time where they're just kind of, off task, or maybe they're writing, maybe they're actually doing something, well then that's not, part of it, right?
They are always talking.
Well, yeah, and if they're talking, when you get the information, we'll talk more in detail about the transcription. Okay, you don't have to, because you're transcribing in detail whenever they're really negotiating and talking. But if they're like, let's say they're talking about what they did last weekend, okay, well then you don't have to do an analysis on every bit, but you're just noticing, okay, for the next 10 minutes they're talking about what they did last weekend. So it's not like in a detailed analysis, but you still have to analyze and say, okay, adelante. Hola. Sí. No, casi. Okay. De nada. So, see what I mean? So,
just to say they were talking about what they did last weekend, and
and that's it. You don't have to do it.
If they go back to the class topic, so
then you have to go back a little bit more detail and say, okay, what happens? But so that's kind of the idea.
Okay.
So 1 teacher, 2 groups. Now, again, like going back to your questionnaire, the reason for choosing that 1 teacher too is to ask in the questionnaire if they're willing to participate in the study, if they mind if you record some of their students' activity. You just want to find the best candidate for for you to do your research. All right. So for next week, let's bring in your questionnaire. We'll look at that.
Mm-hmm.
An observation sheet. The observation sheet. I'm not sure. I think I would design an observation sheet that focused more on the teacher interaction with the students, with these groups. That is, when did the teacher ask questions to these groups, and try to recall or record their interaction only with these 2 groups, not with the whole class.
Okay. And how about if the teacher gets this group, but he emphasizes in this third seat in this student because he's not talking? So the teacher went to this group, but if he went 2 times to this group, the 2 times were because of this student.
Yeah, and if you want to do something like this, fine. Or I usually just I mean, you can assign each student a letter, A, B, and C, whatever. But just write, okay, for 5 minutes, this teacher was talking with student C in group 1.
Okay.
And you write down as much as you hear. The teacher asked that, the student responded. And you just write down as much as possible.
Yes.
And I just do a very simple, I do time, activity, and description. And what I do here is I put a start time and an ending time for each little activity. And I put activity and I put whatever word, and then I describe what I see. What does the teacher say? What do the students say? What does the teacher do? What does the students do? And then I come up with another activity whenever they finish one small activity, right? Now in your case, because it's maybe one activity that might last for a long time, you might have in your description group 1. And then you do a time frame, 8:10 to 8:15. The teacher's talking to this group, and this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then the teacher goes to group 2 after, and do it this way. See what I mean?
Yep.
So I'm basing it on each group, and then maybe they go back to group 1, right? But you're always putting the times. See that?
Yes.
So in each group, in each little exchange, I'm putting the time, so you can go back and say, okay, they spent more time. She spent more time with this group, or whatever. You can kind of associate a time frame for each activity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, I get it.
Always.
Yes.
So for next week, bring in the questionnaire. We'll look at that. Come up with an observation sheet like this. Come up with a header at the top, and this is just going to be a heading with the teacher. Where you add the teacher name, the date, the time, just general information.
Yes.
And it can be just very basic, time, activity, but just something in writing that you
Yes,
can use as a instrument. And we can talk next week about an interview guide.
Sure.
Okay. But I think this questionnaire is kind of important that you apply that. So if you have something together for next week you can apply it.
On
Be done.
for sure.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, Hope. So we'll see you the next week, and
Yes.
come by my office at any time. When you have your questionnaire. If at any time you want to talk about feedback or your literature review or grammar or anything like that, and you want to come by face to face, that's fine. Maybe we can schedule a time to make sure that I'm here. That's no problem. Or obviously you can send me comments. Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Have
I'll
a
see
good
you.
weekend.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye.